Donald Trump is the most dangerous candidate for president in my lifetime. His disdain for the sanctity of our Constitution.
I'm worried about the coarsening of America. I'm worried about how we celebrate unkindness.
It's just frightening, we're living in a frightening time. The stewardship of the nation has been thrown away to somebody who doesn't have a clue as to what that means.
Melania Trump's face said it all when Bruce Springsteen called her husband a simple man with simple answers for complex problems. But what happened behind closed doors might shock you even more. While Donald was busy having his usual Twitter meltdown, insiders claim Melania was caught secretly nodding along to Springsteen's epic takedown. Is the former First Lady finally done with the Trump circus? Or is she just another victim of his ego-driven madness?
Donald Trump is the most dangerous candidate for president in my lifetime. His disdain for the sanctity of our Constitution. He doesn't understand the meaning of this country, its history, or what it means to be deeply American. But like you, I've only got one vote, and it's one of the most precious possessions that I have.
Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now, back to the video. When American icons decide to roast a former president, you know it's gonna be good. And boy, did Bruce Springsteen and George Clooney deliver a 1-2 punch that left Trump looking like a sad clown at an empty circus. These weren't just little jabs either.
It's just frightening, we're living in a frightening time. The stewardship of the nation has been thrown away to somebody who doesn't have a clue as to what that means.
Because the only way we're going to lose this election is if the election is rigged. Remember that. It's the only way we're going to lose this election.
The trouble at the moment is you have Donald Trump, who is talking about rigged elections. And he has a feeling he's going to lose now.
They went straight for Trump's fragile ego with the precision of a surgeon removing a particularly ugly wart. The boss himself, Bruce Springsteen, didn't hold back when he called Trump a carny barker, offering simple answers to complex problems. Oh, if you're wondering what a carny barker is, it's those loud guys at fairs who trick you into spending money on rigged games.
I'm supporting Kamala Harris for president and Tim Walz for vice president, and opposing Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. Has this great country felt as politically, spiritually, and emotionally divided as it does then at this moment? It doesn't have to be this way. America is the most powerful nation on earth, not just because of her overwhelming military strength or economic power, but because of what she stands for.
Pretty fitting for a guy who's been selling empty promises his whole life, right? And coming from Springsteen, a guy who actually understands the struggles of working Americans. It's gotta sting worse than getting sand in your Mar-a-Lago swimming trunks. But it gets better. While Springsteen was busy exposing Trump as America's fakest populist, George Clooney twisted the knife even further. Clooney basically reduced Trump to that creepy guy at the bar who'd slink around asking which cocktail waitress was single. We've all met that guy, and nobody wants to be that guy, especially when you're trying to convince everyone you're some kind of political genius. What makes this so delicious is who it's coming from. These aren't just random celebrities, they're American icons with actual talent and achievements. Springsteen built his career singing about the struggles of everyday Americans, while Clooney transformed from TV doctor to award-winning filmmaker and humanitarian.
Have you thought about if Donald Trump wins, have you thought about the possibility he might use the power of the federal government against you personally?
You don't have to be faster than the bear. You just have to be faster than the one kid. You're that one kid, pal.
I'm the kid.
Yeah, I have, but I'm comforted in the fact that he's coming after you first.
That makes you feel better?
Yeah.
When they speak, people listen. When they mock you, people laugh. And that's Trump's worst nightmare. Clooney's casual dismissal might be the most devastating part. By referring to Trump as just this knucklehead I knew, he transformed the former president from feared political figure to pathetic punchline faster than Trump can say, "Kafif." It's exactly the kind of disrespect that drives our orange friend absolutely bonkers, being treated like he's irrelevant by people whose approval he secretly craves. The contrast between these self-made men and trust fund Trump couldn't be more obvious if it was painted in neon colors.
I try to get behind things that I think I could have, at least I can help bring attention to it. I can't change things. You know, we're not a government, my wife and I. We try to get involved in things that we think we can, and we fail. I fail most often. You know, failed a lot in Darfur, failed a lot, quite honestly, but it's worth the journey. And I'm worried about the coarsening of America. I'm worried about how we celebrate unkindness.
Springsteen grew up in a working-class New Jersey family and built his legendary status through raw talent and decades of hard work. Clooney worked as an insurance salesman and cut tobacco before making it in Hollywood. Trump, he just got a small loan of millions from daddy and still managed to bankrupt casinos. Who loses money owning casinos? The house always wins, unless the house is owned by Donald Trump. When Springsteen described Trump as an unreflective person with no sense of decency, those words carried extra weight. This is coming from a man who spent his life writing anthems that actually connect with the very people Trump pretends to champion. The boss didn't need to make anything up or exaggerate. Simply describing Trump as he actually is was enough to completely demolish that carefully constructed tough guy image. The really juicy part? What exactly did Springsteen say that supposedly got under Melania's skin? He exposed her hubby as nothing more than a simple con man, selling snake oil solutions to America's problems. The complete opposite of the brilliant businessman image she's had to pretend to believe in for years. Can you imagine the awkward dinner conversation at Trump Tower that night?
And with full knowledge that my opinions no more or less important than those of any of my fellow citizens, here's my answer. We are shortly coming upon one of the most consequential elections in our nation's history, perhaps not since the Civil War. The common values, the shared stories that make us a great and united nation are waiting to be rediscovered and retold once again.
Honey, what did you think of Bruce's comments? I don't really care. Do you? While Trump was probably rage tweeting or rage truthing or whatever he calls it these days, Melania might have been secretly nodding along. After all, she spent years watching the man up close, knowing exactly who he really is behind the spray tan and hair fluff. Every time a respected figure like Springsteen or Clooney calls out Trump's act, it's another reminder to Melania of the bargain she made. But here's where it gets really interesting. While Trump is having his usual Twitter meltdown, what about Melania, the woman who once complained, "I never had one correct story, one honest story" from New York Post, must be having quite the private reaction? Those body language experts weren't just making stuff up when they pointed out how she often looks like she'd rather be anywhere else but next to her husband. Think about it. Every time celebrities like Springsteen tear down the facade, it's not just embarrassing for Donald. It's a big fat reminder to Melania of exactly who she signed up with. That famous hand-slapping incident wasn't just a random moment of irritation. It was a glimpse into a relationship where one person is clearly not living their best life. So while Trump's busy rage tweeting in his golden toilet at Mar-a-Lago, maybe Melania's in another wing entirely, secretly nodding along to what these American icons are saying.